And welcome back, everybody. I have an exciting episode today, which I've been very much looking forward to. I've had my eye on Katie for quite some months, but I thought, no, I won't do it just yet, not just yet. But her face kept appearing on my social media with her beautiful voice, her beautiful singing voice. And I thought, no, this is the time. So I want to introduce today a friend of my daughter's, Megan, Katie Palmer, who I first met when Megan started university, and we were struggling. We were struggling up the stairs with all her stuff, and Katie opened the door for us with a great big smile and welcomed Megan in, and has kept her under her wing through thick and thin through that journey, and probably likewise. And yeah, Katie, you just became part of the fold, didn't you? Yeah. And I've had the privilege of going to Katie's house a few years ago. Her mum, Sarah, who very sadly passed last year of cancer with a long battle of cancer, but she loved her parties, and every year would have this annual dressing up party. So Megan and I trekked all the way over to Paris. It was a very bougie weekend just to go for a party in Paris.
It was very bougie. And you looked very bougie. You had fantastic costumes, both of you.
And in your chateau in in Paris, had a wonderful weekend. And Sarah, very, very sadly missed. She was the friendliest of people. And so today is a very heartfelt podcast to talk about your relationship with Mum in life, and sharing your journey through her illness, but also the gift that you've been given with Mum passing that's catapulted you into this life of seizing the moment, living it for you, and sharing your voice with the world, which is incredible.
It really is. It's good and bad to every situation. And
yes. Anyway, welcome to the show, Katie. Lovely to have you here.
Thank you very much. It's so lovely to be here. I've been so excited about it as well.
So you're in Vienna right now, is that right? In your home? That's where you're living now? Yeah.
In my house,
so
on my balcony.
For the listeners, tell us about yourself. Where you've come from. A potted history.
Potted history. I'm Katie. I was born in France of two British parents, and I lived in the French countryside for most of my life. Went to French school and then went to an international school. Then I went to university in the UK for 5 years. I did like an undergrad, 4-year undergrad, and then a master's degree in politics, and then decided that wasn't really my thing, and switched to, I did a diploma in cognitive behavioral hypnotherapy and became a cognitive behavioral hypnotherapist. And I'm still practicing, less today, but still practicing. And moved to Vienna, like shortly after my master's. I was sort of doing back and forth because my boyfriend at the time lived there. And fell in love with the city, decided to stay. And then I was still doing a lot of back and forth between home, where my mum was, and looking after her, and Vienna, where I had friends, where I live in France, in the middle of nowhere. And then unfortunately she passed away just after I decided to permanently move to Vienna, like maybe exactly a month after I decided to permanently move to Vienna. And I've been living in Vienna permanently ever since, and becoming a singer. That's a gift of grief, I suppose, living at the moment.
And we will come back to that to see how that gift has manifested itself. But let's maybe take it back to family life, growing up in France. So maybe can you talk about your dynamics in the family and your relationship with Mum?
So I have a younger brother and a younger sister. I'm the oldest of 3, and I think I have quite a classic eldest daughter codependency with mother kind of relationship that we see very often across the board. And I think my mum struggled a lot with raising us because it was quite traditional, like family, in that my dad was off making the money and my mum was a stay-at-home mum, which she'd chosen to do, but it's really difficult to do by yourself. And I think as soon as I started getting older, I was like, oh, thank God, there's someone who can help me. And she put a lot of the helping and emotional work on me. And I grew up feeling very responsible for everybody around me and always making sure everybody was all right, which I think is the same that my mum went through because she was also the oldest daughter in her family.
So the codependency, how did that play out between the two of you?
Well, when I was younger, I think it was a lack of like boundaries between me and my mother. Like, she was really controlling of everything I was doing, and I didn't have a lot of privacy, for example. And she was very candid, overly candid about like her own personal issues. Like, I was her best friend since I was like 13 or 14 or something, and telling me all her problems with my dad, which I thought was normal at the time. But then growing up, I realized like, oh, like what the hell? I didn't need to know that. And so I think as I got older, maybe like when I turned 18 and left the house, that's when our relationship started getting a lot more difficult because I realized all these unhealthy dynamics, even though I didn't really properly, I wasn't able to like properly analyze them or like understand where she was coming from. It was sort of like, oh, like I wasn't happy there, and like I need to grow and work towards being my own person, I guess, subconsciously. And then everything that she did to like try and control me, like there would just be massive friction, and I'd get really upset and angry with her, and she'd get angry with me. And that went on for quite a while, probably until my like late 20s. Not late 20s, I'm not in my like 23, 24. Even as she was getting sicker. And then I think maybe a couple of years ago, when I started like really doing a lot of self work and therapy, we started repairing the relationship. And I'm very happy to say that like I think we got pretty far in the reparation before she died, which we can go into more detail on.
So when you were a child, you said that a lot of the dynamics that went on in the family, the traditional values, the way mum lent on you, it felt very normal. But in what way did you know subliminally that it wasn't? That it didn't feel right for you?
When I was a child, or
Yeah. At what point did you start to recognize that it didn't feel right?
I think maybe like, I mean, as a child and teenager, I was very unhappy and very depressed and very anxious. Didn't show it much, but I already like was not comfortable in myself or my home or anything like that. And I had so much anxiety over making sure everyone was okay around me. And I think I started to notice it when I went to university, actually, and finally got this sense of freedom, and started talking to people who had gone to therapy and who were like, you know, your mum is an adult, and you shouldn't be worrying about how she feels. I think Meg helped me a lot with that, actually. And other people, I think a friend of mine came to visit me when I was living in Italy on my year abroad. That was in my third year at university. And my mom came to visit at the same time, and she met my mom. And usually everyone was like, wow, your mom's so cool. Like, because she would drink with me and hang out with all my friends and like be around all the time. And this time, this friend was like, your mom's not really your mom, is she? She's just trying to be your friend. And that's not cool. And I was like, oh, that's true. Wow.
Did your other siblings take on that, have that complication too?
We haven't talked about it so much. About what with my sister, I think we've talked about it quite a lot, but her dynamic with my mother was very different because like I was sort of mum's next in line to be mum, so she was training me and making me more independent and less of child, I guess. Whereas with my sister, it's like kind of the opposite. My mum was so much a mum to my sister and did everything for her and created a different kind of dependency, I guess, where my sister just didn't really know how to do anything without my mum around. And I think my mum did similar for my brother, but he's kind of in the middle. So I'd have to analyze that with him a bit more.
And what do you know of Mum's story that she brought in and was somehow trying to repair her own childhood through you, or maybe repeat patterns? What did you know about her story?
Well, my mum was adopted and she had a younger brother who was also adopted. They weren't related though. And her mother, I am pretty sure, was very bipolar. I think her mother suffered a lot of trauma when she was younger. I think she had like some kind of a coat hanger abortion, which meant that she wasn't able to have children. And I think the abortion was from some horrible sexual trauma. No one really went into detail, but that's what I gathered. And she was a grandma that hated men, and struggled with my mum a lot, and would either be like, my mum, I don't think she realized like how traumatic her childhood was, because it's the classic, she just drops this trauma like, oh yeah, one time my mum sat me down in the kitchen with grandpa and asked him to decide between me and her. And I'm like, what? How old are you? She's like, I'm like 14. And I'm like, oh my God, that's horrible. That's not okay. And I think my mum felt very responsible for her mother and looking after her through her mental illness. And nobody talked about the fact that it was a mental illness either. So it was kind of all like put under wraps. And she also told me that her mum never really expressed her love for her. And I think the first time she received a hug from her mum, she was 17. And my mum had to force it on her mum. And I think as a way of repairing her experience, she went the complete opposite with her children and became like, super mom, I will tell you I love you all the time and I will try my absolute best to make everything around you amazing. But it's a Herculean task to do that by yourself.
And it's such a vacillation, isn't it, from not getting anything to giving so much that, where's the balance? Where's the balance for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it also for Mum going through her own story of being adopted and the issues that can come up with that, and then feeling that unloved, to then trying to build a relationship with you that you love, you fill that, so you then became the vehicle to fill that void. So in it was, her child just trying to get what she never had.
Absolutely. I mean, I have no like ill thoughts about it anymore. I think I was quite angry at some point, like most kids are. You're like, oh wait, like that wasn't cool. What the hell? But I think she was just trying to do the best that she could with what she had, and she did a cracking job, because I'm a pretty cool person.
You certainly are. Well, we all have our story, don't we? And we're all just trying to get through, and we're all just trying to meet our needs until we can become conscious. And it sounds like you are, through Mum's experience, really becoming conscious of the dynamics that really helped her to heal before she passed, to make sense of that. It can happen at the last minute.
Yeah,
Sounds
I
like
mean,
it did.
we were really lucky. I don't know. So I was going back and forth between Vienna and France. I'd spend like 3 weeks in Vienna, 3 weeks in France, 3 weeks in Vienna, 3 weeks in France, to help my mom and look after her and cook for her. I think when I first started doing it, it was pretty tense between us. Like we would still have good times and everything, but she didn't really like receiving help. So she could receive things like cooking, so I did a lot of cooking for her. But I don't know, if I offered to give her a massage or anything, she'd be like, no, no, don't do that or whatever. Uh, and I'm trying to think back because I haven't thought about it for a while. So I was going back pretty regularly. And like I said, our relationship was tense. Also because I developed this like obsession with health and well-being. And I think that's when I also started my journey into becoming a therapist. And I didn't see the link at the time, but I assume it was from seeing my mum so ill. Like, and through doing all this research, which I also like was doing for myself, I learned, like, oh, this particular food fights cancer. This you have to exercise to fight cancer. And I would go to my mum and be like, you have to eat this. You have to eat this. Like, this is good for you. This is gonna make you better. And she'd go like, oh no, I don't like it, oh stop. And it was just this constant dynamic of like me pushing something on her being stubborn and like not accepting it, me feeling rejected and unloved, then her feeling rejected and unloved, and us never really talking about it. And that is something I forgot to mention. Our family did not communicate feelings. Like, I did not know how to communicate anything when I was a child. And so this dynamic with my mum, we weren't really like talking about it, because communicating about such things was a very scary place. And through therapy, I already started doing a lot of the repair work, and that I knew like I had to change myself rather than trying to change my mum, because you can't change other people unless they want to. So I started working on myself and not getting triggered by her and trying to remain calm. But it was still pretty difficult because I think your parents are like the boss of therapy. Especially the parent that you were the most fused with as a child. And last summer in August, early August, my brother, dad, and sister, they went away on holiday to the Alps, and my mum at this point was too sick. Her condition had deteriorated, and she couldn't walk or leave her bed. So I said I'd stay home, and I was really happy to do that. And given that they were away for a week, I thought, oh, well, I'm alone at home with mum, but she can't do anything. I'm going to do some magic mushrooms. And was that the first time I did them alone? I think I'd done them alone once before, and had a wonderful experience with psychedelics. And I found that taking them alone was a much more introspective and therapeutic experience. So I thought I will do that and see what comes of it. And I remember I was on my period. I usually take them during the day because it's nicer, but I didn't want to take them during the day in case like mum needed to be driven to hospital or something like that. So I wanted to make sure that she was like fed and okay. So I thought, and I decided to take a strong dose. I thought I will take them now, then feed mum, and then by the time we've had dinner together, like I'll be ready and we can go into it. And I remember I was on my period as well, which is important data. And so I took them, went upstairs to give mum her dinner, and like they hit really fast, much faster than I'd ever been hit by them before. So like, as I was eating with my mum, I was like, oh gosh, okay, it's already hitting. Mum, I have to go call a friend. I hadn't told her that I was doing this, not because she wasn't okay with it, but I wasn't ready to deal with her like asking me questions about it. I wanted to keep it private. So I went downstairs, like already starting to be very high, and I tried to very quickly set up a nice little setting for me. So I put a big picnic blanket outside. It was a nice sunny day, and some pillows, and I sat outside. And at first it was kind of a bad trip because I had cramps from my period, and I was feeling so uncomfortable in my body, like I wanted to crawl out of my own skin, and that kept kept making me think about how uncomfortable my mother should be, because her body was wasted away and she was just in her bed, not able to move or anything. And I hated that thought, and I thought, God, like, actually, I would love to die, not in a suicidal way. It's kind of difficult to explain. It was more like I felt like I knew that death would be a release from all of it, and would make everything okay again. And that was almost a comforting feeling. And then after I had that feeling of like, you know what, actually dying would be nice, then all the discomfort went away and I was able to enjoy myself a lot more. So then I did what people on mushrooms do, and I went around my garden and I looked at things and I was like, oh wow, life is wonderful, isn't it? Oh, amazing. And then I got sad again because I was like, oh God, like mum can't experience this anymore. She can't go out and look at a tree or look at the grass or have a ladybug crawl on her. And that made me really sad again. And these waves of sadness would just come up and I would like push them away. And it was like there was this voice deep inside me that kept telling me, like, go and see your mother, go and see your mother. And I kept pushing it down. And it felt like I'd sort of separated into almost three selves. There was my ego, the voice in my head, that was chattering nonsense, like she was doing loads of accents and talking complete nonsense, trying to distract me from the feelings. There was my body, which almost had a voice, like I could, it was telling me what it needed, which was vegetables. Uh, and then there was like my, I guess you could call it like self with a capital S, like this sort of deep, it didn't even have a voice, like I couldn't hear it in my head, but it was like a knowing, like a pull to go and see your mother, go and see your mother. And eventually it started getting so strong, and I was having all these thoughts about how sad it was that my mum couldn't experience the beauty of being a human, even if the human experience is uncomfortable. And sometimes death is great, but everything else is so beautiful. Eventually I thought, okay, well, I guess I should probably go see her. I think this is like 2 hours in or something. And I went upstairs, and even as I was going upstairs, I still had the voice in my head going like, we're not going to talk about the death thing. We're not going to talk about dying. We're not going to make you uncomfortable. We're just going to watch a David Attenborough documentary with her and experience something with her. And that'll be enough. That was the narrative going on in my head. And I opened the door and I saw my mum there, and I just burst into tears immediately. And my mum was like, oh my God, like, what's wrong? And I just said, you're going to die. And I don't know if I can handle it. And we hadn't talked about it before together. I don't even think, like, we'd had some cries, but they were more like cries after having a fight, of just being like, oh, okay, I'm sad and frustrated because we can't communicate our feelings. And I went into her bed and I hugged her so much, and we cried together, and it was so healing and beautiful. And we talked about death and what she thought of the afterlife. And I was like, you know, if you die, you have to send me some signs. She was like, well, I don't know if I can. Like, but if you can, you better do it. And she promised me she would. And she told me she was scared of dying. I said, yeah, I'm scared of you dying too. And in that moment, I kind of realized that most of our issues, most of our problems were because I wouldn't let her be my mum. Because she'd put so much independence on me from such a young age, I went completely the opposite direction. And I was like, okay, you want me to be the mum? You're not my mum anymore. I am the mum now. I take care of things. And so every time she tried to mother me by, you know, telling me to, like, I don't know, researching things. If I was looking for a flat, and she started getting really into my flat search, and I was like, fuck off. I don't need you to do this. This is my job. Leave me alone. And I mean, I barely even let her hug me when I was a teenager as well, because she was so overbearing that I went the opposite way, and I was like, don't touch me, like no, no, no. And so I developed this huge wall of like, no, I'm the adult here, not you. And in that moment, it all came tumbling down, and I was like, oh my God, like, what am I doing? I'm wasting the opportunity of having a mother, and having a mother that loves you and cares for you is one of the most incredible things in the world. I don't think there's any other connection as strong between a mother and her child. And I wasn't letting her hug me. I wasn't calling her when things were bad. I kept all my personal life really secret. And that's why she was so like difficult with me, I think, because I wasn't able to. We just weren't able to communicate our love for each other until then. Like me telling her, "You need to eat this," and that was me saying, "Mum, I love you. I want you to live. Please, I'm trying my best," but I didn't communicate it like that. And I realized that if I did communicate it like that, she was a lot more receptive. So
Yeah.
from then on, our relationship was incredible and beautiful. And of course, I still got triggered, and we still triggered each other, but I was a lot more able to be like, but let's not talk about that, Mum. Maybe not.
And how much time did you have with Mum to relate like that?
3 months, from August to October. And I think in that time I must have spent 4 weeks with her, because I also went back to Vienna at the beginning of September, and then went back to Vienna 10 days before she died. I think, no, I spent like a week early September, and then she went into hospital like around the 15th of September or something, because her condition had deteriorated. So I flew back to be with her, and we spent wonderful, wonderful couple of weeks together. I was just like cooking, and we'd like hang out together, and I asked her to stroke my hair, and I'd like talk about all my boyfriend problems
Mm-hmm.
and things like that, and it was really lovely. And sorry about the microphone. Then I guess the last week that I spent with her, she got, I think like very early October, we got some really good news from the hospital, that she was going to come home, because she was in hospital most of the time, and that she was doing better, and she'd just started immunotherapy, which is a new cancer treatment, and it was working. So it was fantastic news. My mom said, well, you have to go back to Vienna now. I have to go back. So booked my tickets for the like 8th of October or something. I think I had an extra week with mum. And then 2 or 3 days before I was supposed to leave, she went back into hospital again, and I spent the night there with her, and she said, you still have to go. I'm going to be fine. You leave. So I did decide to leave, because she told me that I needed to live my life for myself. And she was completely right, because I hadn't really been living my life for myself at all, up to that point. And the last time we saw each other in person, we were in hospital. And it was one of, again, a beautiful, incredible moment. I told her, like, don't die. Don't die while I'm gone. She was like, no, I promise I won't die. And I kind of knew she was going to die. I thought it was going to be more after Christmas. I think she might have thought that too. But we did both maybe intrinsically know that like it might be the last time that we see each other. And so it was like this like magical, timeless space had been created. It was just me and her in the hospital room for, I think, only like half an hour or something. But it felt honestly timeless. Like the whole of time had stopped, and it was just me and her, and I was just in her arms, and she was hugging me, and she was saying that she loved me. And I was really like letting her be my mom, and I told her that I was going to miss her so much, and she said she would miss me so much too. And then I left, and she was okay for a couple of days, and then her condition started to deteriorate. And like I'd call her on the phone and she was actually okay on the phone to me, but my brother got her on the phone one day and it was like she'd gone completely off her rocker. I was saying like, there's a cat in the room and oh, I understand now. I understand everything why grandpa was like that. And I understand why mum was like that, which is kind of lovely, I think. The black cat is an omen of death, and apparently having visions from your childhood also big omen of death. And this was the whole week before she passed away. And we were asking the hospital staff, like, what's going on? She doesn't sound very normal. And her oncologist, who's an extraordinary woman, really someone who deeply loves all of her patients and loved my mum. And that's a huge task when you're an oncologist, I think. She was away the week before my mum passed away. And the nursing staff said, oh, it's just the morphine. She's on morphine. This happens when you're on morphine. And I kind of knew, like, I don't know, like, she's been on morphine for a while. It's a bit weird, but we didn't think anything too much of it. And I remember I was having a fantastic week. I was like doing loads of stuff with my friends and like setting up my business and working on my website and feeling amazing. And then she stopped answering my texts one day, which I thought was really weird. And then that evening, the oncologist came back and my dad was visiting her in hospital, and she told my dad, get your kids home, get them home now. I don't know how long she's going to last. It's really not looking good. So my dad called me and I broke down in tears, obviously. I think I was outside in the street. I went straight to go get a bottle of wine instead of going for a walk. And we managed to book flights I was going to fly to London to pick up my brother and sister, and then we were all going to take the Eurostar together because they live in England. And I actually took magic mushrooms that night as well. Because I still had some left in my fridge, and I think I was in such a panic. I was like, I need some way to cope, and I thought that was a good idea. Took them, then realized, this is not a good idea. Now I'm just high and sad. But actually, it ended up, again, it sort of started out bad, and I was just feeling horribly alone. I was living with a flatmate, but she's also quite emotionally avoidant and didn't really know how to handle it. She baked me a cake, which was really lovely, but not very physically affectionate. And I was in my bed, freezing cold, like just feeling devastated and so lonely, and thinking, oh my, like, this is so unhuman. I think we're as a species, we're not supposed to be alone through difficult times. Like, we're such a tribe species. I should be surrounded by people who are giving me hugs, and I'm alone we didn't even have heating on, so it was really cold. Cold bed. And then I had this kind of epiphany. I don't know if it was like my mum sending me a message or something, but I just got this sort of like, wait, like what would my mum do for me now? Like, what would she tell me? She'd be like, stop being cold in your bed, go have a nice hot shower and take care of yourself. So I got up and I had a nice hot shower, and she'd given me this really nice bar of soap. And I saw this bar of soap and I was like, oh, like, even if she does die, but she will, well, when she dies, I still have so much of her love around me and the wonderful little gifts that she's given me. So I put soap in my body and I was like, this is my mum's love, and it's making me feel much better. And so I put warm pajamas on, made myself a hot water bottle, and then I managed to get some sleep. Woke up, my friend drove me to the airport, and I think we'd been in the car for like 5 minutes. My dad called me and he told me that she'd passed away, and we weren't going to make it back in time to see the body. And he asked me if I could tell my brother and sister. Well, we were like figuring out, like, is it better to say in person or on the phone? And I said, I think I'd rather tell them in person, probably.
Did that feel a responsibility for you to have to do that?
I think it did, yeah. But I think in the time it was a real responsibility I was very happy to take on. still playing in the dynamics probably of me feeling more responsible than my dad. But I went to London and I picked them up at the Eurostar and told them in the Eurostar lounge, and we cried together. And it was actually really nice to be with my siblings for them.
So
Yeah,
they
they
got the
didn't.
hugs. They got the
They got
hugs
the hugs,
in that
exactly,
difficult time.
exactly.
Mhm.
Actually, my friend Maya, she lived very close to St Pancras Station, so she met me before I went to go see my brother and sister, and she brought me a teddy bear and a hug.
Mm.
So I also got my hug.
How do you feel of not actually being there when Mum passed?
It's it's been like more than a year now. I think at the beginning I was really angry at her for not waiting, and I couldn't understand why she wouldn't want us to be there. And I think it was really difficult to deal with also because she had a very strong belief that you could choose when you went, because her father, I think he died, he was dying and she went to visit him and he died like just after she left, and she was like, he chose to go after I left, after I'd said goodbye. And I thought, how, if you believe this, like, why didn't you wait until your kids were able to say goodbye to you? I don't think she even got to talk to Lizzie on the phone for like 10 days before she passed away. And I was lucky enough to get her on the phone just before she died, and she told me that she loved me. That was like her last lucid word, but my brother and sisters didn't manage. And I was just angry that she would leave like that. And I think I've gone on my own journey on like trying to let go of the anger, and also trying to be more like spiritual about it, and trying to find signs of my mum.
What's your take? What's your take on her decision? If it was her
So
decision.
I recently, so my first take was that she did it in a kind of martyr way. Like, no, I can't possibly put my children through the pain of seeing me die. And that's what I was angry at. I was like, don't be a fucking martyr. Like, no, I would much rather be there for you, and you should know that. But I've recently, literally this weekend, I was having dinner with some friends of my parents, and they were talking about their experiences with death. And the woman, Nicoline, she told me that her mother, and both her mother and father had like died without her being there, and her father especially had literally like pushed her away when she tried to hug him, and he was like, no, get away, get out. And that like broke her heart. And she said, actually, I think that it's too difficult to leave when your loved ones are there, and they need to leave because it's too painful not to. But and that's probably
Mm.
why she didn't wait for us to go, and that comforted me a lot more, because I thought, oh, like, maybe actually there was a decision that she made for herself. Like,
Yeah.
I love my kids, I can't leave them behind if they're there. I don't even think I don't think my dad was in the room. He was in the hospital, but the she was like having like a bit of a fit, and the hospital staff asked him to leave while they calmed her down, and I think she passed away then.
Wow. There's so many different dynamics to passing, isn't
Yeah.
there? It's, she had used you as her mother in that
Mm.
codependency, and was that her final gift to take back that parental responsibility of not taking her own responsibility and being stronger,
Mm.
maybe protecting you from your feelings of having to see that. It's interesting that her dad wasn't there at the time too. And if you think about how she came into the world and adopted her feeling so alone when she came in,
Mm.
that
And alone
choice
when she
to
came out.
leave and to do it on her own on the way out, and the signs of death calling her, the fact that you were both able to break down those barriers of surrender with each other. There is, and I believe that there is an unconscious process of preparing for death, and
Mm.
because how do you let go? You know,
Mm,
we have that first intake of breath when we come in, and we have to have that last exhale as we leave. But it takes a lot to be able to have that last exhale, and maybe she just needed to do that herself to
mm,
and be selfish.
mm. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I,
I don't,
I,
I, I can't leave you alone.
mm,
So sorry, I can't let you go. So I need to do this on my own.
mm. I think that's what it is in the end,
Mm,
that she couldn't do it. And like, that's the thought that felt the most right to
yeah,
me.
it's very powerful.
Mm. And I
Yeah.
think now I can like let her go a lot more, because
Mm,
I think you do kind of have to let go of your dead. Not that I'll like stop being sad or stop mourning her or stop remembering or celebrating her life or anything like that. But there was this like anger, like, Mom, why did you leave me?
You
I'm so
didn't meet my
young.
needs.
What the
Yeah.
hell? Yeah.
Mm, mm.
And now I can kind of like,
It helps to separate that the two of you are just two very separate beings. You shared a life together. You grew and learned from each other. Um, and mum's time had come to an end, and she just
mm,
needed to find her own way of passing. And for you to see that that was her choice separates her from you. It's her life. It's her choice, and death is her choice. So now, you've come through and you've just had your first year anniversary. How was your first year?
weirdly, one of the best years of my life.
Mm,
Obviously, one of the a sad year as well. But actually, the year my mum passed away was like the absolute worst year of my life. Loads of bad things happened, and dealing with my mum dying, and then the cherry on top, mum dying. But I actually think all the bad stuff that happened before was just preparing me for it, so I was well prepared. And in
so a lot of the grieving happened before.
Yeah, um, do you want to go into that as well, or
Sure, sure. If that comes up for you.
uh, yeah? So before Mum died that year, I broke up with my boyfriend Tristan, who you know.
Mm,
We broke up uh, early January that year, and that was a very hard breakup for me. Even though it needed to happen, I was very devastated. And then I thought that when I broke up with him, I thought that it wasn't a real breakup. We're just gonna like take a break and then get back together. And then he started seeing someone else uh, quite shortly after we broke up, and that was a double like stab heartbreak. So that was a lot of grief. Then I got pregnant in
oh wow.
February, yeah, end of February. Um, Last year as well with this other guy that I was seeing, who was the one who drove me to the airport actually, um, and had an abortion. Uh, that was a grief that I like needed to go through, and just all these things. Like after the abortion as well, I had complications from it. I was like, I wouldn't stop bleeding for a month, and it was like a really heavy bleeding. And then at the end of that month after the abortion, I had like this weird super period where I was just bleeding buckets and buckets. And actually, my mum was there for that. I woke up one night and like there were clots the size of tennis balls coming out, and I thought, oh my god, am I dying? And my mum was too weak to really walk, but she still came to the ambulance with me, and we didn't even figure out what was wrong. Um, After that, I was severely anemic, and until then, I'd been kind of like into health and fitness and well-being, but more from a um, like place of lack. Like you have to do this because otherwise you're not good enough. You have to exercise, and like I'd got really fit and everything, but it wasn't a healthy fitness. And having this abortion and the breakup and everything like forced me to stop completely. And I tried to get back into it, but because I was so anemic, I could barely run like 10 meters without passing out. And it takes a long time to recover from being that anemic and losing that much blood. And I continued to have very heavy periods after that as well. So it, I think, took like 6 months or something to properly recover. And I just kept like trying to start my life and be productive and, feel okay in myself. And life kept hitting me in the face. Like, I don't know, I'd have one good week and then I'd get sick. I got sick so often, and I think it's because I was still so stuck in this belief that I needed to produce in order to be valuable as a human being. And also not properly handling grief. I think that also led me to being sick. And I had like a massive breakdown I was going to visit a friend in Germany, and I woke up that morning to go to the train and I was sick again. And this was like the fourth time or something. And I was on the train and I just had a complete breakdown. I was like, why me? Why? I do everything right. I don't understand. I'm like grateful for things. I try and be a good person and just shit keeps fucking happening to me. And I think for the first time, then I decided to call for help. And I called a friend and I was like, can I just be sad and vent? And they were like, yeah, of course you can. And I was just like, oh my God, my life is really shit. And I'd never allowed myself to like voice it or be, I don't know, a burden to people before. And I realized, oh my God,
Be mothered.
exactly. That was, I think, the first step to being mothered. And I also, I think I even called my mum about it and complained. And I was like, oh my God, this is so nice. Maybe I just need to ask for help. And I started to be a lot more open and vulnerable with my feelings and communicate them to people. Still on that journey, and it's not always happening, but it's much better. And I think all of those events prepared me for when my mom died. And I was like, oh, like, actually it's so beautiful that I can call people and ask them for help. And like my mom's funeral was lovely. It was so nice. There was so many people that came and gathered around and helped. We had 2 funerals, and it was lovely. So all those prepared me. And I can't remember what the rest of the question was.
So your body, because of the disconnection to feelings, you said the family don't do feelings, we don't talk about emotions. But the body's very clever at letting go of those feelings and emotions.
Yeah.
It knows what it's doing. It takes the rein, doesn't it? But it can be in a very powerful way. And our reproductive area is about our feminine embodiment and our connection to our mothers and our sense of who we are as women. And it was your release. You were losing a mother and you chose not to become a mother. But afterwards it was, no, I want to be a mother because the mother role is what you know.
That's completely it. I think
so much pain in that.
Yeah. But now, I mean, I think pain is such an amazing teacher. Like every time something bad happened to me, I grew even more as a person. And when Mum's death came, I had absolutely no doubts that I would handle it and it was going to be okay.
You were ready. So tell us about the wonderful year that you had after that.
That was where it was going. Well, after that, I can't really remember much from the period like after my mum died. It's kind of like a weird limbo up until Christmas. Even after Christmas, not sure what I was doing, just being sad most of the time and in shock. So I think I was with my sister quite a lot. We got really close. It's really lovely. And then I moved back to Vienna, and the housemate that I was living with said she couldn't live with me anymore because she wasn't very good at living with people. And luckily, like by magic, a friend of mine suddenly had an opening in her apartment, which was deep in Coast in the centre. So it was kind of like perfect timing. And so I moved into a new apartment, and I think because of Mum's death and seeing the fleetingness of life and seeing things like my mum complaining about her body on her deathbed, like she's sick with cancer, and she's like, "Oh, I look so bad." I'm like, "Who gives a shit, woman? Who cares? Come on." But that was, how she was conditioned, and I realized like I also still had a lot of those negative thoughts about myself, as a lot of women do. So I started working on that and being really nice to myself. And I think the the taking those mushrooms the night before my mum died kind of also really helped, because I had that thought for the whole year, and I still have it now whenever I'm like feeling down or sad or like having negative thoughts or anything. I just go like, oh, how can I be a mum to myself? Like, what would mum tell me? And I pick the good parts, because she could be sometimes quite critical. So I pick the good parts. Like, no, you're beautiful. And she wouldn't be happy if I called myself fat. So I stopped doing that. And then I thought I was still working on building my therapy business. I can't remember how the thought came to me, but I sang at my ex-boyfriend, so Tristan's mum. She had a fashion show late in December, and she asked me to sing at the fashion show. I thought, oh yeah, like that'd be nice, because I think I told her that I sang. And so I prepared a little show with the guy who got me pregnant. We were friends at this point. Uh, he was a guitarist. He's like, I'll accompany you. And I was like, yeah, okay. That sounds great. And last minute, he couldn't make it, so I did it on my own, and I rocked it. And I thought, oh, like, this is awesome. I guess, and I got so much good feedback from him, like, wow, you're a really good performer, and it was really lovely hearing you. And I was like, oh, and I kind of love to do it. I love it. What am I doing with my life? Like, why don't I give it a shot? I met someone who introduced me to some of the jazz bars in Vienna, and I started going to open mics and singing there, and I also got good feedback from that, and still while doing my therapy. And I wasn't like thinking of it as a career, but it was like a nice, like side hobby, and I was really enjoying it and getting good feedback. And then my dad sent a video of me singing to some friends of his who own a club in Amsterdam. And they were like, oh, wow, she's great. Like, she should come and sing in our club. So he organised for me to go, which was really cute. And we went in, I think, May, and I sang there, and I got super good feedback, and all the other singers were like incredibly talented. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, like I'm not just good, I'm like really quite good. That's cool. Nice. And I asked one of the singers there, who was doing like French songs a bit like me, what's a tip for someone who's starting out? If I wanted to make this a career, make some money out of it. She was like, well, I mean, you've got the talent, you just need to find musicians to do it with. Like, you do French songs, find an accordion player. And I was like, where the hell am I going to find an accordion player? Can't find accordion players. And I went back to Vienna, and I remember like I was still in this kind of like I have to be productive mindset, because that one's really difficult to let go of. And I was like, right, I've had fun in Amsterdam. Like, the day you get back, you're going on the internet and you're finding accordion players. And I got back, and I was like, the day I got back, I was just really tired and didn't do anything all day, and took rest, which like I knew I needed it, but I was kind of feeling like, oh, I really should be looking for musicians, I guess. I want a career out of it. And then in the evening, my friend texted me, and he was like, Katie, you have to meet this girl. I think you'd be a great match. And I was like, oh, romantically? And he was like, no, musically. She's an accordion player, and she wants to do chanson française. And I was like, oh, no way. Like, that's pretty mystical timing. And we went for a drink the next day, and we click like so well, like really, what a match. And then I think the day after, we decided to go to a concert together, and the concert was like balcony music, and there was an accordion player on stage, and she was really drunk. She went up to him after. She's like, let me borrow your accordion. She's French. And he was like, who the hell are you? She's like, no, I play accordion. I'm an accordion player. I promise. Here's some videos. And she's like, okay, fine, you can have it. And she's like, Kitty, come on, like let's do some singing. So we went to the back of the stage, like to this grassy area, and started singing some Edith Piaf songs that we'd never like really rehearsed together or anything, but it was working. And we got like a little crowd gathered round, and the technicians like pointed a light on us, so it was like all professional and everything. And at the end, we got applause, and this woman came up to me and she was like, that was amazing, thank you so much. Do you mind if I post it to my Instagram story? And I was like, yeah, like weird. Most people don't ask. Sure, okay. And then my friend tapped me on the shoulder, and he was like, "No, you don't understand. Like that's Stefanie Sargnagel, who's a really famous feminist author in Austria. So she has loads of followers on Instagram." And she posted it there, and I got loads of followers and loads of people being like, wow, that was really good. And then we got booked for a concert almost immediately in like a town in Austria. And that's when I thought, this is all kind of, it feels very cosmic or something, and it feels like this is my path and this is what I need to be doing. If so many good things are happening like that, it's not coincidences, I need to do it. And so that's what I've been doing since. And
Wow.
every time, like, it just magic happens, honestly. Maybe it's mum moving things from above, I don't know, but like I'll sing in the street and just people will come up and be like, sing at this place or sing at this place. I feel like I'm in some weird video game and I just have to like go to places and meet characters and go on missions and like upgrading all the time.
Well, you asked Mum to send you signs. She's been sending them ever since, hasn't she? And she so wants you to live the life that you should be living and are living and are flying. It's a joy watching you. My jaw dropped when Megan sent me your video.
You.
And I mean, I knew you sang, but I didn't know you sang.
I didn't know either.
So for the listeners, for those who would like to meet you on Instagram and social media, and would like to hear your wonderful pipes, how can they get in touch with you? How
my
can they find
Instagram is Daisy Hearts Music. That's my stage name, Daisy Hearts, because I love
Daisy Hearts Music.
And people often call me Daisy when I meet them. Like, so it felt like it was my alter ego. I'd be like, "Hi, I'm Katie," and they're like, "Oh, Daisy." I'm like, no, they don't even sound the same. But so I became Daisy Hearts.
And is that a little heart tattoo on your cheek?
It is. It's not a tattoo. I am thinking of getting it tattooed, but I like to change the color of it depending on my outfit.
Oh, okay.
Because I think it's really cute.
Well, I think it would work.
Yeah, I think so too. Also, very funny to get a face tattoo.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your story. So much growth has come from that, and so much you were able to give Mum as well before she passed. And if you are spiritual in any way, you'll know that she's not left.
Definitely am.
She's just vibrating on a different frequency and is still with you every step of the way, helping you and orchestrating, and probably nagging you from up there.
I think so. She's been crazy strong.
But you so deserve the life that you want, and to have learned this at your age, to take back that responsibility and allow yourself to learn to self-love and be loved and cared for. That's a huge gift from Mum, because she did her job. If that's why you chose your mum to learn that lesson, you've learnt it and you've passed with flying colours. So I hope that just continues to grow and flourish, and when your children do come along, you can certainly
repair some mistakes.
Repair. Hopefully repair and not repeat.
Exactly, yeah. I think I'm sure I'll make many parenting mistakes, but hopefully I'll be able to repair them.
It's a constant evolution.
Exactly.
But Mum will be guiding you and getting you back on the straight and narrow. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you so much for being a wonderful interviewer.
Thank you. And you've certainly given me a little bit of insight too. I have a very close relationship with Megan, and I know that there are times where there's been some kind of codependency too, and we have done very well to balance it. It's finding the balance of staying close and connected, and what are those healthy boundaries. Megan is learning to find her way in the world and stand independently. But I'm just a product of my parents, and my mum is a product of her parents. So we're all just learning and making it up. So thank you for what you taught me today, because I certainly will be reflecting on it as well.
Thanks, Jill. I'm very happy to hear it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I will speak to you soon. If you ever want to come on again and share your insights.
Yeah, but I'm sure I'll learn many lessons as I go along. So I'm a yapper about this stuff. I love it. So you can tell me if you're like, oh, I don't have a guest, and call me or come and yap.
Thanks, Katie. You are a gift.
Thank you. You're a gift.
Okay.
So lovely.
See you.
See you. Bye.
Bye.